Hi everyone, I am Amogh Kamli and I am very happy to shoot this video for all of you. We are going to talk about Sicilian defense, dragon variation, and before we get to that, how am I here and why am I here? The other day I happened to meet my old good friend Sagar Shah at ChessBase India Club, and I was curious to understand how can I contribute to ChessBase India. And here popped up a question: do you remember the game that you defeated Parimarjan Negi in Sicilian defense way back then? And I did not remember the game exactly, but I do have an experience of defeating some 2400, 2300 players on chess.com in Sicilian Dragon variation. So we came up with an idea about how I create this course for all of ChessBase India viewers. I would like to thank Sagar Shah and ChessBase India to give me such a wonderful opportunity to connect with ChessBase India viewers. So thank you once again, Sagar and ChessBase India, for this. So we're going to dive into the opening right away. 1 e4 c5, knight f3 d6, d4 c takes d4, knight takes d4, and then we go knight f6, knight c3, and the dragon move here is g6. Well, the idea of dragon, a lot of people think that it's the bishop that spits fire across the diagonal. Yes, we have a very strong bishop, but also the one thing that you need to understand that the positives for Sicilian Dragon is mainly black has is the pawn structure, the h7, g6, f7, e7, d6 pawn structure, also the semi-open c file. So if the queens are off the board, well, you are very happy to play that position as black because of the pawn structure and the advantage of the c file open for you. Excuse me. So to g6, white plays bishop e3, and to bishop e3, well, if you get to exchange your f6 knight for the e3 bishop, well, it's a great deal. It's an amazing deal because then your bishop on g7, trust me, is going to be very powerful. A sneaky trap: don't go for knight g4 here, because when you play knight g4, he plays bishop b5, and then you lose the knight right away. You'll have to play bishop d7 followed by queen g4, so you lose a knight right away in the opening. Don't do that. So bishop e3, we go with bishop g7. White plays f3, and now we castle. Also, one pro tip: if you play the f3, you need to be more than sure that he's going to castle on the long side. Well, white does castle on the short as well in Sicilian, but if he's going to play f3 and if he short castles, he's going to lose a tempo. So of course he's going to go for a long castle. So castle, queen d2, we go knight c6, and in today's video we're going to talk about ninth move, long castle. So do stay throughout the video till the end, because we're going to talk about some important lines, some mistakes from the white side, and what we can do to that. Alright, so knight c6, white castles. To be a good chess player, you exactly need to know what your opponent is planning. We need to understand, as black, what is white's plan of action. White is planning to attack with h4, h5, then hg6, open up the h file, then he will play bishop h6 and exchange the bishops, and then play queen h6, king g8, followed by knight d5. This is white's idea. The main idea is to attack this way. Eventually there will be a checkmate. Now to counter this, we need to do something right now. Yeah, Sicilian is very tactical, and you have to be very sharp with your tactics here. If you make one move wrong, you might completely lose the game. It goes vice versa also in your favor. So we go d5 here, and d5, white has three main moves, and one is not such a well played move, that is queen e1. We'll discuss that, but the first variation that we're going to discuss is e takes d5. To this we go knight d5. Well, before I tell you the right move here for white, I'm going to tell you knight d5 can seem tempting. So if he goes knight d5, ready to be happy, because queen d5 and then knight c6, queen c6. Now this position is very good for you if you're black. You'll have bishop on the open diagonals, you will have rook a8, rook fd8. I mean, you can't ask for anything more. So after queen c6, if he goes with some kind of a amateur attack like h4, we can go bishop f5, g4, and there is one tactic coming up here. To g4, you can go rook a d8, and queen goes to f2, and now just play bishop c2. With bishop c2, if he plays queen c2, then you can go rook d1, king d1, queen f3, and then we can take the h1 rook. So there's one small tactic that you should know, because not everyone might be aware of the right moves. We don't know. So we need to be we need to be aware of what if we don't need to just understand the right moves. What if he plays the wrong move? So we need to be well prepared for all the variations. So to knight d5, coming back to that position, white plays here knight takes c6, which is the right move to play, and you go back with the b6, b cross c6. And I think a question that might pop to all of you can be, why not we go knight d5 and take the pawn? Well, knight d5, cd5, queen d5, it looks like a free pawn, right? And I'm going to tell you a move which seems like little, for those of you who are watching Sicilian Dragon for the first time, this can be surprising. So we play queen c7. Okay, now queen c7, you might feel, oh my god, the a8 rook is hanging. Yeah, it looks like it's a hanging rook. But if you take rook, we can go bishop f5. Now our idea is to go queen takes c2 and eventually do a checkmate. So obviously white is forced to go queen into f8. When he goes queen into f8, you take king into f8, and now he plays rook d2. Now we have a queen for 2 rooks. But I would say this is very much playable. You can go queen b8, and I would recommend you to play this position, put it up in against the engine, practice this. I think this is good for black. We can create a lot of weaknesses, like if he pushes something like b3, then you have the diagonal in your control. So I think this is good for black. All right, so let's get back. If he doesn't go for capturing the rook, if he goes queen c5, well, you can go with a move like queen b7, again threatening queen b2, and white will have to play queen a3 here. So he plays queen a3, well, it's fine. I mean, you can go rook b8, and if it's queen a3, this position is playable. So here, knight c6, bc6, the most played move here is bishop to d4. If he goes bishop d4, well, there are, I would recommend knight c3 here. Well, a very tempting move is e5, and bishop c5, you can go bishop e6, bishop giving away an exchange, bishop f8, queen f8, and then this position is slightly better for black. But there is an annoying move that white does here. He would not take the rook, so bishop e6, he plays knight e4. I don't find this pleasant with the bishop with the knight coming to d6, and I mean, I don't like this position, honestly. Well, if you're a fan of this position, you can try it, but I think I would not recommend this line. Instead of this bishop d4, I think you can go with knight c3, bc3, and then you can go queen d2, exchange the queens, and this position is fine. Play bishop e6, and I think we are very much playable at this point over here after bishop e6. So I would highly recommend this move instead of pawn e5. Okay, going back to the place that we were, d5, we saw about the ed5 variation. Now let's look at the other move, that is king to b1, and white chooses to play king b1. Over here we can go with knight b4. This is the move I would say you should be going with, and white plays e5 here. Well, to e5, you simply go knight f5. Knight f5, the idea is that we try to take the e3 bishop, and then we have, like if he takes on e takes f6, we takes e takes f6. So basically knight f5, if he goes e takes f6, you go e takes f6, and knight d5, you go knight e3. You get to exchange the e3 bishop with the knight, and if he captures back with the knight, it would be a mistake, because after knight takes e3, you basically go queen d2, rook d2, bishop h6, and rook, basically he'll play rook e2, and now you go rook d8. Now this position is bad for white clearly, because after c3 you can go rook d3 and then knight g4, bg4. I think it's clearly better for black in this position as an endgame. So I think obviously he should not be taking it with the knight. He would take it with the queen, and to this you can just play bishop e6. After bishop e6, I mean, you don't need to worry about the queen, and to bishop to e6, you don't need to worry about queen being on the same file as the rook, because obviously the rook is unguarded at the moment. But overall, you can have ideas, like let's say if it goes with something like bishop c4, you can play f5 and open up the diagonal of the bishop, and you're fine here already. Okay, so let's get back to the other variation. So d5, if he goes knight c6, well, knight c6, you can go bc6, and now if you goes ed5, cd5, it gets transposed into this previous variation that we saw, that knight d5, queen d5, and we know about the whole variation we just discussed right now. But instead, if he goes with a move like after knight c6, bc6, if he goes with like something like bishop h6, then I think you can go with bishop e6 here, and if he exchanges the bishop, you take it back with the king, and we can play queen c7, and we have the control of the b file. So white has not even started attacking here, that the initial idea was, but we are not bad here. We are quite well off. We can go rook b8, we can go queen a5, queen c7. Well, there are a lot of ideas over here that we can implement. Okay, so going back to this previous variation, so to d5, a little unpopular move. I saw some of the games that they play queen e1. Well, the idea of queen e1 is to put the rook on the same file as the queen and create some kind of threats, but I think queen e1, I don't see such a good move, because you can strongly play e5, and to e5 white has a good option, that is knight c6. If he plays something like knight de2, I think you should be playing d4 right away, and I think you can claim a good position right away, because after d4 we are dominating in the center, and I mean this is clearly better for black in this position. So obviously he's not going to play knight de2. Well, what I think white has an option is knight c6, you go back with b6, e6, and after that ed5. Very tempting to play c takes d5, but don't, because after c takes d5 it meets with bishop g5, and now our knight is under relative pain, and then there's going to be bishop c4 and all kind of threats on the open d file. So I would say ed5, go knight d5, and you can play something like bishop c4, we go bishop e6. Our idea is going to be to play rook e8, queen c7, rook b8, and continue with the attack. Also, certain mistakes or certain big blunders here for those of you, if you play d5, if he takes e takes d5, knight takes d5, obviously some things like h4, g4 are out of question, because if you play that, we just go knight e3, and that loses immediately. That's a blunder right there, because h4 meets with knight takes e3, and we don't even need to discuss that, because it's a tactically a very bad move to play knight d4, and that's going to be bad. So yeah, h4 is out of books. In the next video, we're going to talk about bishop c4, 9 bishop c4 instead of 9 long castle, and we are going to see what to do to that move. Probably I can show you a game, and we can learn as much as we can. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed having an opportunity to connect with you all viewers. So do shower me with a lot of love, and I would love to see you next time soon. Thanks everyone. Take care.